No place like the Q. Family, this is your favorite queer radio personality, Anna DeShawn, and this is Queer News, your favorite weekly news pod where race and sexuality meet politics, culture, and entertainment. Only on E3 Radio, your number one stop for queer news done right. Can I have a moment of transparency with you, family? And I feel like I can do this because podcasting is different. Podcasting is supposed to be different. It's meant to be special because we build a relationship every single week. You hear me in your ear every single week. You all talk back to me on social media, okay? Or when you reply to a newsletter. And podcasting is special because I get to report on the news, something I really do enjoy, but it's not void of my opinion. Podcasting gives me a space where my journalistic training of being unbiased can really be just thrown out the window. And at the end of the day, you do get the news, okay? Quality reporting, but you also get my feelings. Sometimes you get a rant, you get Anna's word. And I feel like in this moment, transparency is not needed, but I think it's important. And I think it's important to be vulnerable on this podcast and to be honest, because that is what makes podcasting special. And so when I thought about how to intro this episode, believe me, there's a version that does not include this moment. But I do think it's important because this is what makes podcasting special. So with that, this past weekend, I had a pretty major family emergency. And so I've been bouncing from my house to the hospital, back to my parents' house, back to the hospital, giving health updates to family and friends, not getting any sleep. Y'all know how it is when life starts life in this way. And so there was no time for me to put together our standard episode with multiple stories that includes hours of research and all the things. There was just no time. And y'all know, I'm committed to doing this podcast every single week because in this environment, it's important, it's necessary, and I take it really seriously. I take my work very seriously. And even with all that being said, because of how I have structured my life today, this past week, I had time, okay, to produce a bit for this podcast. And we are still able to deliver a really important episode today. And I am so proud of that fact. And let me tell you, this past week, I was scrolling through IG, truly, just minding my own business, okay? And I saw a post by Lambda Legal announcing a big win in the courts. They announced a legal win that restored $6.2 million of funding to LGBTQ and HIV organizations. That stopped me in my tracks. It stopped me from scrolling. I sent an immediate screenshot, okay, to my friends over at Lambda asking if there was anybody that I could talk to about this win. It was meant to be one story. It's part of our standard episode. And then I was going to release the whole thing later and then release the video on YouTube. But life said, you need this for your whole episode today. Okay? This week, this will be the episode. And so it is. My friends at Lambda came through within hours. We had a recording on the books with Jose Abrigo, HIV Project Director of Lambda Legal Defense and Education Fund. If you don't know, Lambda Legal is the oldest and largest national legal organization committed to achieving full recognition of the civil rights of all lesbian, gay men, bisexual, transgender people with HIV. Jose oversees Lambda Legal's impact litigation and policy advocacy in the area of HIV at the state level and national level. Jose and I had a great conversation, family. And honestly, I was just excited to talk about some good news because politics sucks right now. It's hard for us right now. The evildoers are doing their evil things every single day, conspiring against our humanity and God-given right to live full, unapologetic lives with the rights and protections afforded to us under the U.S. Constitution. Truly, for me, it is that simple. So with that, I do hope you enjoy this conversation. If you are a praying person, I ask that you are sending up prayers for me and my family. And if you listen to this episode and you find value in it, I ask that you share it. I ask if you aren't part of the QCrew, you consider joining us and sustaining this podcast. It starts as low as $5 a month, and you'd be helping to cover the costs of bringing this podcast to life every single week. And if the cuts to NPR and PBS are not wake-up calls, if the media deserts that exist across this country are not wake-up calls, child, I can't say nothing else. It is so important for us to financially support the media organizations that support us and that tell our stories. And so if that means something to you, please consider joining the QCrew. A link is in the show notes. So stay locked in, family, after this quick break for the conversation with Jose about this important win. Till next week, peace.
Mental health parity is the law requiring that your health insurance coverage for mental health or substance use disorders is no more restrictive than coverage for your physical health. Learn more about mental health parity laws at getcoveredillinois.gov.
Artis, a Black lesbian-owned restaurant in Chicago, needs our support. A tragic incident took place outside of their restaurant, and after just a few months, they have decided to close their doors. It's terrible. It is Chicago politics at its finest. And right now, they need us, community. They are looking to move to a new location, but need some financial support. You've heard their story here on this podcast for the last 2 weeks. So please, if you've got some extra dollars, consider giving to their GoFundMe. Because in these moments, we are all we got. A link is in the show notes. If you're listening to this, it means we didn't sell this ad space. If you're listening to this, it means running ads on our podcast can actually work. You see what I did there? Do you need some promo? A little amplification? Hit us up at info@e3radio.fm. That's info@e3radio.fm. We have a platform. You should use it. Family, please welcome Jose Abrigo to the show, the HIV program director for Lambda Legal. What's going on, Jose?
Thank you so much for having me. Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad we could talk about something good. Okay, can I tell you what I read? I read Lambda Legal wins, U.S. government restores $6.2 million. Child, when I saw $6.2 million, I stopped in my tracks, okay? $6.2 million in cut funds to LGBTQ plus and HIV orgs. And I saw that and I said, I have to ask somebody what this is all about. So, Jose, I understand that you all challenged 3 executive orders. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so we challenged 2 obviously unconstitutional, obviously illegal executive orders issued by the Trump administration, literally his first day into office. 2 are anti-DEI executive orders. They attempt to render DEI illegal across the United States. And the second is the gender ideology order that attempts to erase the existence of trans people from the law, period.
And tell me, where did this lawsuit take place? And how long have you all been in litigation with this particular case?
So we filed the case in March. We have plaintiffs from all across the country, from California to New York, everywhere, 9 amazing plaintiffs in the organization. And we brought the case in the Northern District of California. Our main arguments are this is a First Amendment violation. By forcing our organizations to ignore DEI, ignore the fact that communities of color are disproportionately affected and harmed by HIV and other healthcare factors, and asking our plaintiff organizations to no longer recognize trans people would be impossible for them to conduct their work. So it's a violation of the First Amendment. The government is trying to force their discriminatory viewpoints onto our clients. And if they don't adopt those discriminatory viewpoints, they would take away their funding. And that started. And so as a result of this lawsuit, we won a preliminary injunction, which has restored $6.2 million, a little bit more than $6.2 million in funding to these 9 amazing organizations across the country so that they could continue serving their community. They can continue serving trans people. They could continue serving communities of color. And it's just an amazing win overall, and we're very happy with it.
Amazing. Congratulations. This type of injunction is what's needed. I feel like the courts are standing in between us and true fascism and authoritarianism in this country. I feel like they're the thread holding on to the last pieces of democracy that we have right now. To see a court say, yeah, this is wrong. Yes, this is unconstitutional as it pertains to the First Amendment means a whole hell of a lot right now. So I don't know, Jose, not to put you on the spot or anything, but do you know the names of these 9 organizations off the top of your head?
Yes. San Francisco AIDS Foundation, San Francisco Community Health Center, the Gay and Lesbian Historical Society, LA LGBT Center, New York LGBT Center, Forge, Bradbury Sullivan Community Center, Prisma Community Care Center. And I think that's all 9 of them.
Wow. You locked in, Jose. Okay. And this is why I really do appreciate the work that Lambda Legal is doing, because you are helping the organizations on the ground that are helping all of us. This particular win also is important because all I feel like I'm reporting on is bad news as it pertains to the political environment right now, especially as it pertains to queer folks. Jose, in the grand scheme of all the work that you all are doing, how important is this win on the timeline in this fight against the Trump administration?
Yeah, he's only been in office for 7 months at this point, but we're winning in the courts. We are constantly winning in the courts. This case is an example of it. This case is one of the first cases that challenged the gender ideology executive order, which is discrimination issued by the president's office. And one of the many cases challenging the anti-DEI executive orders. And so what the Trump administration is trying to do is they're trying to attack their disfavored groups because they know an attack on one especially vulnerable group has a ripple effect because the law is interconnected. An attack on trans people, an attack on communities of color, it ripples throughout the entire civil rights world. For example, we raise equal protection claims. This is discrimination under the Constitution because it violates equal protection. A ruling on equal protection for LGBTQ folks has the same impact on communities of color, has the same impact on women, has the same impact everywhere. So a question that I get asked is, why these 3 executive orders? Why the racial executive orders, the anti-DEI executive orders, and why the gender ideology executive orders? Mm-hmm. What's the thread that ties them together? The thread that ties them together is systematic oppression. Oppression on one group is oppression on all of us. I think because I lead our HIV work nationwide, I think it's especially illustrated there. People living with HIV, it's mainly the Black communities who are being affected by HIV, and it's mainly trans folks who are being affected by HIV. Those are the 2 communities most at risk for HIV. And ordering these organizations to ignore the existence and ignore the existence of trans folks, ignore the fact that HIV disproportionately affects the Black community, is essentially like asking a surgeon to tie a hand behind his back and perform surgery. Mm-hmm. So these are needed concepts that the organizations have. It's an existential crisis. They cannot function unless they target services and serve communities of color and trans folks. And the administration took away a lot of their money to do that. And we were able to restore it, and we're keeping them afloat to be able to serve the communities and to be able to make sure that our community survives. So I'm really happy about that.
And thank you for that analogy. I think sometimes we need to be able to see it in some type, shape, form, or fashion. So the idea of their hands being tied behind their back, quite literally, because of who they are choosing to serve with their work, right? I think more people need to hear it just like that. So what does this temporary injunction mean? So understand that this just over $6.2 million has been restored. What happens next?
Yeah, so the preliminary injunction is in place. We expect the government to appeal that preliminary injunction. So what a preliminary injunction does is it keeps the status quo for the remainder of the case. As lawsuits could take years, and especially complex lawsuits like this will take years to litigate, a preliminary injunction protects our clients so that they do not have to follow these illegal executive orders while the lawsuit takes place. So it gives them cover to continue serving their communities. It also keeps them funded to serve these communities. We know the Trump organization is eliminating money to serve communities of color, to serve LGBTQ communities. We just saw what happened with the Trevor Project. Mm-hmm. This injunction keeps that funding in place and allows them to target services to communities of color and trans folks while we litigate the case, while it goes through appeals until it gets to final judgment. Hopefully by then, who shall not be named will be out of office, and this will no longer be a problem anymore. But that is the goal, to protect our plaintiffs for as long as they can, to continue serving our community for as long as they can.
And isn't that just such an important part of the legal work we're doing right now? Is that it's about waiting this game out a bit, right? This is about when culture and politics collide, these next 3.5 years, the work that's needed to advance people's mindsets, the message to see the damage of this administration is having on people, the promises that aren't kept, yes, and the ones that are. And what it really means when they are kept against some of the most vulnerable in our country. Preliminary injunctions are a way for us to wait it out. At some point, we just have to wait this moment out. And yes, we will survive, but what will be left? And so if we don't have these preliminary injunctions in place, what could be left is nothing. Literally 60, 80 years of civil rights, liberation, movement, revolutionary work could literally be gone. It's been able to do in 7 months. Could be gone in 4 years if the legal battles like this one don't work in our favor.
I think you hit the nail right on the head, Anna. One of my favorite quotes by Martin Luther King is, "The moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice." Mm-hmm. I think we as a queer community have seen this. Also, the Black communities have seen this. The progress towards civil rights is cyclical. There's great gains. We just won marriage equality 10 years ago. Lambda Legal was on that court case at the Supreme Court. And now we're seeing that backslide as a reaction of that. But the net positive as a result of this is that we are slowly moving towards justice. Like when the Civil Rights Act was passed in 1964, amazing progress for communities of color. But then we saw the other side coalesce and try to pull that back. But then over the course of time, there's a net gain in civil rights. That's what we're trying to do here in our court cases for civil rights, for LGBTQ rights, for women's rights, is we're trying to prevent the backsliding as much as possible so that when we're back on the upswing, we can continue the momentum, rebuild what was lost, and continue the gains that we've been moving towards in the long term.
And family, I know net gains don't seem like enough. I know. It is incredibly frustrating how slow, honestly, that arc towards justice feels. And I think in these moments, we do have to think about the larger picture. This is a moment where I feel like I'm in my auntie bag, where I am actively thinking about the next generation, where I am not the next generation in this moment. And I think that we do have to think about the fight ahead for the next 40, 50 years, given all of the executive orders and all of the anti-trans legislation that has been put into place over the last 3 or 4 years. It's really been incredible to live through this moment and understand that this is our generational fight.
That is absolutely right. What I will say is we as queer people, we as folks of color have often existed outside of the bounds of the law and outside of the protections of the law, but we have kept each other alive. We are family. We have supported each other. That is needed more than ever now that this backslide is happening. But always look to the future, always look to where we will be in 10, 20 years, where the future queer kids and future kids of color will be in 10, 20 years. We want to leave a better world for them. The purpose of this case is because I and Lambda believes firmly in a multiracial, pluralistic democracy that has equality as one of its foremost values. And that's something we want to build towards. So that's something we need to keep our eyes on the prize on. That's what we're moving towards. Right now, it's really hard because we're backsliding, but we protect each other, we support each other. But in the long term, we will achieve that goal. We fight and we will win.
Period, point blank. And we always have and we always will. Jose, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast, on E3 Radio, and to share this win with us. I think it's important for us, family, to pause sometimes and really take in a win, because when all can seem lost, it is so important for us to understand that there are wins happening that we may not see all the time. And so this is a win that we can not only see, but we should celebrate. Okay. We should be thanking Lambda Legal for their work, making donations if we can. And you stay locked in right here on the Queer News Podcast for more news just like this. Okay. This is the type of work I want to be doing in this moment. I think this is the type of work we need in this moment. So stay locked in to E3 Radio, your number one stop for queer news done right. If you've enjoyed what you heard, rate and review us inside your favorite podcasting app. This podcast is written and produced by me, Anna DeShawn. Podcast editing by Ryan Woodhall. And brought to you by E3 Radio and distributed on The Cube. We are Queer News Done Right.